All right, so we're getting into graphing quadratics in vertex form. All right, so what vertex form here means when you have an equation in the form y equals a times x minus h, and of course we have to have the square to make it a quadratic, plus k. Now this is something I hopefully most of you have done before or seen before at least. But again, I'm going to go through it, how to graph these things. The big thing here is your h is your left and right number, and your k is your up and down number. All right. So, and I'll explain what that means. So what we're going to do is we're going to graph quadratics using what's called the step method, the 1a, 3a, 5a method. All right. So the first thing is you got to be able to find these values, these a, h, and k. Now, this is a lot like, well, it's not a lot like, it is what we were doing before with transformations of functions. Only I hate this because the textbook switches your d and your c to h and your k. I don't know why they do that, because it gets me mixed up too. Because it's a completely different k, and we don't even deal with the k that we did with transformations. But anyways, on a more simple level, your a is your number in front of your bracket. So there's our 2 right there. Your h, your left and right number here, again, there's supposed to be a minus sign in the equation. It's a 6. All right, so the h always looks the opposite, just like when we did quadratics in factored form earlier today. And then your k is minus 4. So what this is telling us when I look at the h and the k is that this graph is going to be shifted right 6, but down 4. All right, now the original vertex of the original quadratic is at 0, 0. And so if you're shifting your graph right 6, down 4, your vertex is going to be right 6 and down 4, or at 6, negative 4. So the first thing with a quadratic equation, the first thing is to graph the vertex. So I go over and I graph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 4 down. So 3, 4 down. There we go. Now I need more points to graph an equation in vertex form. And so what I do is I use my a value, and I use the fact that the steps that I'm going to use are going to be 1 times a, 3 times a, and 5 times a. And so my steps are going to be, let's see here, whoops. 1 times 2 is 2. The next step would be 3 times 2, which is 6. And then 5 times my a value, which is 10. All right, so here's how I get the rest of my points. I've got my vertex. I go over 1, up 2. It's always over 1. And then I go over 1, up 6. So 2, 4, 6. And then I go over 1 again and up 10 if it fits. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There we go. Now, as I mentioned earlier today, a quadratic, a parabola, is symmetrical. It's the same shape on the other side. So I go back to my vertex. I go over 1. This time I'm going left, though. Up 2. Then I go over 1, up 6. And then I go over 1, up 10. And there is my vertex. And that is called graphing using the step method, which is obviously a lot easier, but we can do that when we have a quadratic in vertex form. All right, let's try a couple more of those. All right, so again, I got to be able to look at my equation, identify the value. So again, the value in front of our brackets here is negative 0.5. So that'll do my steps again, which are 1a, 3a, 5a. But here's what we're more concerned right now is my vertex. This graph is being shifted left 4 because the h value is a minus 4. So that means the vertex is going to be shifted left 4. The k value is 10. That means I'm going to be going up 10. So again, I'm going to go and plot my vertex here. So which is left 4 and up 10. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There's my vertex right there. All right, but then my steps I've got to multiply a by 1, 3, and 5. So 1 times negative 0.5 is negative 0.5. Here, and then I go 3 times negative 0.5, which would be negative 1.5. And then my next step, I got 5 times negative 0.5, which is negative 2.5. Whoops, 2.5. So again, that's multiplying each of my steps, 1, 3, and 5, by that negative 0.5. And so again, that now tells me where my other steps are. So I go to the vertex. I'm going to go over 1 and then down a half. That's what the negative sign's meaning, down a half. Then from this point, I'm going to go over 1, down 1.5. So that's actually going to be right on a grid mark. And then I'm going to go over 1 again and down 2.5. There we go. And again, because our parabola is symmetric, I do the same thing on the other side. So over 1, down a half. Over 1, down 1.5. And then over 1, down 2.5. And there's my parabola. Again, much easier than when we did vertex form or factored form in my case and earlier on today, in my opinion. All right, one more of those. Okay, so now we get to graph this equation right here. So again, I got my a values out in front. That's a negative 1. My h value is 3. So this graph is going to be shifted right 3. And the k value is 7. So that means it's going to be shifted up 7. And so again, I can graph my vertex where I go right 3, up 7. So 2, 4, 6, and 1 more. All right, now my a value to figure out those steps that we're going to use. All right, and so the steps, 1, 3, and 5, I multiply them all by negative 1. So they're going to be negative 1, negative 3, negative 5. All right, so again, back to my vertex. I go over 1, and the negative sign means down 1. And then I go over 1, down 3. And then over 1, down 5. Go back to my vertex. Again, same thing on the other side. So over 1, down 1. Over 1, down 3. And over 1, down 5. And there is my parabola. And there we go. All right, now